Some Sonic fans end up making such amazing games that everyone wishes they were real. From remakes and reimaginings of games that already exist, to projects that go way beyond what we can imagine from the games that have been released. With spiritual sequels and even an alternative version, it's fair to say that if Sega had followed good ideas, these games would exist. So here we even have an insane fighting game crossover featuring Sonic and even a playable Mega Man. An enhanced version of an 8-bit game which got a 16-bit version and a sequel/remake made by a Brazilian that even runs on cell phones and features modern characters. Dude, silver is here. And games that were missing, Sonic games that should have been released for the Sega Saturn, and that's what I'm going to talk about now, so give a shout out because this video is long. I know what you're thinking, how come in 2025 there's a new Sonic vs. Mega Man game? What the heck is this? Sega vs. Capcom? The truth is, there have been rumors about this for a long time. And in recent years, we've ended up seeing several collections and even heavy investments in new fighting games, which ended up being a kind of relief for this genre that has already lived through its golden age, and in a way we can say it's a silver age because new games with collabs are coming out. Even if you don't like certain characters, right, CRC? But the question here is which fans started working overtime in a kind of unofficial crossover, where the Sega crew would face off against the Capcom crew in a game that would have a story mode, system, tag battles, lots of action, ending up somewhere between the balance of Marvel vs. Capcom and that Tatsunoko vs. Capcom. That's right, I'm going to talk about this game now. Man, go ahead and like this video because this game looks really beautiful, seriously. Its logo already reminds you of that SNK vs. Capcom logo. The thing is, this game is pretty limited for now. It has some offline mode options here, which are basically arcade mode and story mode, but it also has an online mode that seems to be working for now, but I honestly don't have the courage to go online and play this against anyone on the internet. I'm terrible at fighting games, so I would just get humiliated in this game. I don't even think it would be worth trying and it would lose its fun for me. But let's go. It does promise gameplay for up to 4 players. 4 people, but that really depends on the mode. The game is limited, it only has 6 playable characters right from the start, with the promise of at least 4 more to come. For example, there's Akira, who came from Virtua Fighter, that first big 3D fighting game from Sega, you know, which almost nobody remembers these days in Brazil because Tekken became much more popular here. There's Ryu from Street Fighter, and there's also Axel Stone, who came from Streets of Rage. It's going to be pretty cool to play with him here since fighting games aren't really his thing. There's Batsu from Rival Schools. And seriously, if you've played that, congratulations, okay? Besides, of course, Sonic and Chase from Mega Man X, yeah, here they're playable in a way that you could get really excited about or not. It seems like each character has like a different style. Some can hit much harder, which means they're going to be a lot slower. There are those who can have a kind of higher defense. And of course, those who would be faster. Honestly, this can really affect your style, but since we're talking about a fighting game, it wouldn't be surprising to imagine that a player with more speed would deal less damage. A character with the shield symbol would have more counterattack options on defense, and so on. The game works in tag mode, meaning you choose 2 characters to form a duo. And here you'll play just like any other Marvel vs. Capcom game out there. Seriously, you have things like the ability to do super jumps and you keep charging your special. I believe this is standard for any other fighting game, but to me it ends up reminding me a little, but only vaguely, of Tatsunoko vs. Capcom, which is that game exclusive to the Nintendo Wii that was also 2 vs 2, but it had that difference of being simplified when it came to doing combos. Basically, anyone could play that game since the Wii controller had few buttons for fighting games, but now you have more options. 2 punch buttons, 2 kick buttons, a button for partner actions, and yes, you charge a bar so you can call your partner to launch a special or a move to use as a counterattack. That really helps in combat. Honestly, this is the coolest part of the game. It offers many possibilities. While it seems to be a simpler game, especially since it was made by a small team, I don't know, someone even asked me if it was made by just one person. It's not just one person, but honestly, hardly anyone is making this game. I chose at the start the duo of Sonic and X, which is the most random duo you could put in this game. And yes, there are duos here that seem like they were chosen kind of randomly, right? Just to match one character with another. Sonic, he's really fast. His moves, man, will remind you of other Hedgehog games. I'm talking about the Tornado Special, which came from Sonic Heroes. Moves, combos that look like they came straight out of Smash Bros. When you play as Sonic, it's just like when you play as Sonic in Sonic Battle. He also has faster, focused attacks here, like the homing attack, which is that spinning jump. But Sonic is really good at kicking. Seriously, I was able to combo really well with him, and I learned to play better with him, more or less. Why? He's a much more agile character. So it's really easy to break the enemy's defense and manage to combo in a certain way. Sonic's special moves are pretty boring in my opinion, okay? Because when you play with him, you have like him punching the ground with his spin jump, or he does a super spin jump on top of someone, or he creates a tornado. Man, there could be a special where Sonic turns into Super Sonic and attacks, and of course we also have here my friend Mega Man X, and for God's sake, man, the guy is awesome. He already appeared in Marvel vs. Capcom, but the combos here are completely new, okay? Basically, every attack from Mega Man X is like he's replicating one of the weapons he absorbs from bosses in the games from the Mega Man X era. Seriously, there are a lot of different attacks. He even has Zero's Saber. It didn't take me long to get the hang of playing with him, but it's really interesting to see how he works here. He doesn't just charge his shot to attack. But the number of attacks he ends up using here is impressive, man, because there are so many types of moves. And this might end up reminding you, man, of some other Mega Man game you played in your childhood. Seriously, because the references are here. Now, speaking of references, let me say something about the stages, okay? First, you have an arena here that's a temple. It's clearly the Street Fighter stage from Smash Bros. Seriously, because it's exactly the same. The lighting, the moon, and everything else. I know there's a whole background story here. There are some references to a certain character, but let's set that aside. There's another stage here that's the Sonic World. It's basically a park inside Green Hill, with references to Sonic's anniversary. There's Sonic Man making an appearance in the background, not to mention the golden Sonic statue, and also the Sonic Knuckles logo, which by the way showed up here in this game. There's another stage here that's for training. But instead of being like those training stages from Capcom games, they put the setting in a space arena. It's actually pretty cool, to be honest. And there's another one that refers to the same training stage, more focused on Capcom. It's pretty cool, but there's an exit here that leads to the snow. Honestly, I didn't get the reference here, okay? Besides that, there's another Sonic stage. And yes, there are more Sonic stages than from any other game, and this stage here is Knuckles, from Sonic Adventure 2. And of course, there's a stage here that, man, when I realized where it came from, it really warmed my heart. A stage from Shadow Dancer, the elevator stage, where you end up escaping from ninjas, helicopter gunfire, and you keep trying to climb all the way up to the Statue of Liberty to face the boss. I only realized this here, man, because of the dog. Yes, Yamato is here. The other pretty standard duo for this game is Akira and Ryu. Man, talking about Ryu is easy, right? He's pretty much the default character for almost every Japanese fighting game ever made. Seriously. A virtuous character with a headband, uses a special move, and is famous for doing forward plus punch to throw a Hadouken. His commands here are exactly the same as in any game where you play as Ryu from Street Fighter when he's present. Seriously. He's the easiest for anyone who's played even a little bit of fighting games. Now there's Akira. Yes, this one is Sega's most iconic character. He actually competed with Tekken at one point, and he was the main fighting game when Sega was promoting their arcades with 3D games. You just can't jump with him. He doesn't have special powers, but he focuses more on combos. It's impressive to have him here, and pairing these two as a fighting duo is a great idea. Good choice. The other duo here, which I can't find any connection for, if you know, leave a comment. It's Batsu with Axel Stone. Well, Axel, for those who know Sega games, he came from Streets of Rage. It was a series of beat-em-up games that Sega made back in the Mega Drive days. It only came back now, man, with Streets of Rage 4 for the new generation. He's a former police officer who ended up retiring and fought against crime, using his own fists, of course, with the help, of course, from members of the police. But he ended up learning some martial arts that let him use fire powers. Of course, his story is much deeper than what I'm summarizing here. But man, for those who played a lot on that Mega Drive, the one that came with some games built in, or with a cartridge with 10 games, it would be really cool to see him using a special move that summons, I don't know, the police bazooka shot. Too bad this was kind of cut from the game. He's only using here the special combos that came from Streets of Rage 2 and also from 3, so here's a tip for the game's creator. He could create a skin with him using the beard from Streets of Rage 4. Yeah, there are some people who forgot that game exists. Now, Batsu, he came here from another game called Rival Schools. You might not even know this game. It's from Capcom. It's a bit obscure. I hardly ever see anyone in Brazil talking about it. But it's also another fighting game that, yeah, got lost out there. Just so you don't say I've never played as him, I remember him from Tatsunoko vs. Capcom. Yeah, that game that nobody remembers when you face the three pairs. Now you're forced to enter some arcade moments against bosses, like New Ryu, okay? Who ends up teaming up with nobody. Besides using a special move that came from Akuma, okay? That's it. At least I hope I'm saying this correctly here. And finally, there's Dural, who, my friend, is a villain from the Virtua Fighter games. But in these graphics, she seems pretty limited. The bad thing is that she keeps dodging a lot of attacks all the time. After facing all this in the arcade, the game ends with a small cutscene where there's like a kind of beam of light. That ended up summoning Shadow. Yeah, there's already a spoiler for a future character here. My name is Shadow. That's pretty much all the game has to offer for now. Man, I'll tell you, the game is really good, and it's impressive, okay? Graphically, it's well done. I don't know if this game will ever be finished at some point with more characters, because fighting games, man, every character you add needs a lot of balance, patches to fix things. Keeping things balanced for each character here, I'll put the link in the description. Also, follow me on Twitter and Threads. Because, man, every time there's an update, I'll be sharing it so you can keep up, because this game is really good and it's free, so it's worth checking out. For a long time, Sonic Fangames were at their peak, and they were also kind of a counter-response, saying that Sega didn't know how to make games. And with all these people making different Sonic games and fan games, another community emerged. They wanted to take ideas that Sega had already used in some old games and reuse them in new projects. The idea here is very simple. It's about remaking old Sonic games with modern graphics, where 8-bit game concepts would be redone for a new version as if they'd been released for other consoles. But also greatly improving the look, which had become very dated on the Game Gear and Master System. There are several projects out there. But what really catches my attention is this one, Sonic 2 Gear Shift. It's basically the Sonic game from the Game Gear, the one where Tails dies, remade into a new version. It's basically that game's Sonic Mania, so to speak, which ends up showing the lost potential of several design and gameplay elements that game had. But now they can be played in an improved version, so leave a like, man, and give a shout out in this video, and tell me in the comments if you've ever played Sonic on Game Gear. This one is another remake project which is excellent and what I'll discuss now. This one! Sonic 2 Gear Shift. It's funny because it really reminds me of the issues with the game. Seriously, imagine that you played Sonic 2 on the Genesis. But when you go to play it on the Master System and Game Gear, you come across a title screen, stages with Tails on the title card, but you don't get to play as him. Well, there are sprites and several ideas that could have hinted that Tails would be there, but since it was a lower budget game, let's put it this way, they didn't even try to make his gameplay work. Guys, with all due respect, Sonic 2 for Master System and Game Gear is a completely new game. It's like a parallel version because, you see, when Sonic 1 for Master System tried to take some things from Sonic 1 for Genesis, it kind of feels like they dropped half the project along the way with other brand new stages. Here they didn't take any references, none at all. Just look at this stage, Underground Zone. The first stage of the game is literally a minefield, which in this version is much better. It looks like a volcano stage, and in a way we can even say it is because you go into much deeper areas with lava all the time. Not to mention that the beginning of every stage has this art here. Wonderful pixel art. I don't know, it's the only game in the classic Sonic series that has something like this, and it's really cool. What's even stranger about this game is that there's an industrial coal mine stage here, and it's insane because it's the first stage of the game. In the original game, it was already strange. But when they take this and put it in 16-bit format, the game gets completely out of control, because if you're the guy playing Sonic for the first time, you end up facing a much more complex universe. We're used to stages like hills, green areas, and loops. Here you have that. But you also have lava, holes, cliffs, spikes everywhere, and at the same time you get the feeling that you could die at any corner. Like, if it's the first stage, it already starts in the most hardcore way possible. Like, this is the most, I'm not gonna say difficult game, it shocks you right from the start. And yes, this remake, even though I compared it to Sonic Mania, it's a way for me to tell you who ended up playing or getting to know Sonic just now. Because to me, this game gives off a vibe that it was made for the Sega CD, like if the Sega CD had a sequel, you know? Because it not only has visual effects, but it also keeps the 4:3 aspect ratio just like back then, but I notice it in the details here on the Act End signpost. Like, you have a similarity in Eggman's sprite before Sonic passes by, which visually reminds me, yes, of Sonic CD, and here there are even more effects. When Sonic runs off, it looks like that high-speed effect from Sonic Advance, you know, which works really well for this game. But what I find most impressive in this game is the new gameplay. Man, in moments like this, you start running with Sonic on top of a minecart, which shows how Sonic was even ahead of Donkey Kong in this aspect. Nowadays, Donkey Kong is more associated with this mechanic, but this was already in Sonic on the Master System, and it's here too. which gives an even greater sense of speed. You can even skip some platforms, and honestly, with all due respect, even though this is just the beginning of the whole game, there are some of the craziest moments with this minecart. Plus, when you get to this third act, you see that Sonic almost falls to his death, and honestly, it's hard to understand. Robotnik shows up to save Sonic at the last moment in this story. He could have defeated his enemy right here, but no, he does this. And here there's the iconic boss, which is this bizarre centipede that Sonic can't attack. He's trapped. With these things, they're bombs that keep bouncing on top of him. And the only thing you can do is keep dodging, literally like that. The tense part is that if you mess up and get hit, you can fall and die, lose a life immediately here. What's even more tense is that when you start getting used to it. Dodging bombs, Eggman shows up at the end, and he does the kamikaze move. He tries to kill himself to take out his enemy. It's not about Eggman winning a war here, man. It's about making Sonic lose. Be careful, this guy is dangerous. Second stage, Sky High. This stage is a nightmare, sorry. It looks a lot like Hilltop from Sonic 2, so maybe you could say that some things from the Sonic games on Mega Drive were brought back here. This stage is tense, because you're in the middle of mountains, and you can fall off small cliffs. Besides, the scenery looks like it's made up of several Tetris pieces. I don't understand why that is. The guy who made this game is a huge fan, because he even includes bugs from the original game, like the monitors, this extra life monitor that's on top of a mountain. If you pushed it in the original game, the flickies would appear. And here too, that was kept, you know? The guy really paid attention to these details. All this care to do justice to the original version. Even knowing that the stages here are infinitely bigger than in the game that was released back in the 90s, and even though it's a game that recreates the gameplay of an 8-bit game, inspired by the stage designs and original story, everything here is different. Some enemies are new, like this Cloud one. I don't recall it from the original. Also, there are confusing platforms such as these clouds you can jump on. There are other seesaws in areas where you think you can jump, but actually you can't either, so it makes everything much more tense. And a lot longer too, because of that. Old games have levels that you finish in less than a minute. Here, you can actually end up spending more than 5 minutes on a single level. For younger people, that's hell, but for those who played the original game and are remembering it, it can be a pleasant experience. But here is the highlight of this level, and I'll tell you, I hate it, the hang glider. When you find it, man, you have to fly, but I don't know how to control the flight here. Seriously, in the original, you kind of did something similar to Mario's cape in Mario World. Here you do almost the same thing, but then you lose control, you know? I prefer the idea where you just keep pressing up or down and change direction, but here you do almost a half-circle motion, but here you have a wonderful transition. Suddenly the clear sky turns into a huge storm. I think that's impressive. That happened in the original game with this change from one stage to another. But here they do it with thunder effects. Man, there's a calamity happening in Sonic's world. He's really worried about going through stages like this. There's even a storm. And I feel like at some moments while I was playing on stream, this game gave me the impression that I was, you know, being pushed along with the hedgehog, but I can't prove it. And then when you get to the third act, full of beanstalks and the bluest sky, we find the boss who seems to have been remade to be longer. Eggman appears here and launches his little eggs. There are these little birds that come out jumping. Man, I had never noticed there were some springs. I think that's a redesign. Then came the earthquake. Sonic falls to the lower floor, and who shows up here is Mother Goose with her neck. This was her original form, let's be honest. The 16-bit gameplay is much better than the 8-bit speed, so much so that when her whole body appears, man, it's so much easier to defeat her like this. Sonic is able to regain his speed very quickly. To be able to break her, it's impressive. Seriously, Grey Hill Zone. They say this was the first stage of the game, but they changed that to make it seem like the game wasn't repetitive like the original first game, but still, the green hill here, man, to me it looks like it came straight out of Sonic's CD. You know, you look at this green stage, you have a lot more space to run around. Here, the guy makes sure to put in a lot of loops, so you can also get that sense of speed. The game even has it. But since this is an 8-bit version of the original, here you have, you know, and the real idea they wanted to convey with that stage. So much so that the loop even has a certain perspective here, and it's strange because this stage, besides that, has a song that seems to have been reused and sung in the Sonic CD version, you know. And I'll be honest, as I was playing this game, having followed the older versions that had already been released, and seeing this update, I was actually a bit more impressed. Because the guy made a point of drawing new sprites. This Sonic sprite, which is based on that original 8-bit sprite, yeah, it's a very subtle detail, but you can notice it. There are elements that also give off a Sonic CD vibe, but the project didn't progress much. It only got a single stage because when you finish the first act of Grand Hill, you get the game credits. Man, I'm really critical of some fan games lately. I think it's messed up to just attack fan games out there because the guy's doing this for free, and this is also a project made for free. But like over time, fan games disappeared, and here we have kind of a remnant from that good old time when Sonic fan games, which were coming out more often, were actually good. But here, in this case, unfortunately, it's still just a demo. I hope that it will be finished, and then we'll be able to play Sonic Gear Shift in full. They made a new Sonic game here, but it plays with the multiverse, making connections with several other games, and it makes references to pretty much everything Sega has ever done, even knowing that it's a Sonic game that tries to play with the Sega multiverse. So, my man, if you're happy with this game, give a shout out here and comment, Sonic 3 Remake. Here's what I'll discuss now. I'm Roberto from the Arcade Play channel, and I'm talking about this amazing game. Let's get started so you understand. Here, this project is made by a Brazilian named João Araya, I believe I'm saying his name right, and he made several remakes of the Master System Sonic games here. He made the first Sonic and then the second one, which grew into not just a remaster but actually a remake. Since he ended up creating his own timeline, and here he ended up working on this project, which now is bringing together stages from Sonic Chaos and Sonic Triple Trouble. Triple Trouble is much more complex, known for a fan base that believes it's the definitive 8-bit Sonic game, while Sonic Chaos is pretty much left out in the cold. But it's sold well here in Brazil, man, and the gameplay here is really different from the standard Sonic games, okay? First, you have two teams. There's Sonic's team here, where you control not only Sonic, who has the drop dash ability, but also Shadow, who has a kind of forward dash, which is really good. And there's Silver, who, besides being able to float, can also use his telekinesis in a way that makes him intangible, which lets him go through walls in this game. But there's also the girls' team with Amy Rose, who smashes her hammer on the ground, breaking everything non-stop, which is really good. There's also Blaze, who unleashes a wave of fire, practically turning into a supernova here, and seriously, this is the most overpowered ability in this game. And there's Rouge, who can not only fly but also use her sonar to detect other precious gems. Bonus game, red rings, and much more. And when you finish a stage, there are some teleport rings here that take you to a bonus game. One of them, for example, is Sonic, with the jet boots, flying around inside this sphere, picking up lots of little orbs that can not only increase your score but also give fuel to your jet boots. This is pretty much a good place to get a good amount of lives and also points in this game, which is really cool, to be honest. But there's also another one here, which is like a mini game where you take care of various animals, kind of like the Chow Garden. Literally, you stay here like cleaning the grass, putting the little animals where they want to be so they're a bit more comfortable, like throwing the penguin in the water, the rabbit on the grass, giving food to each of them. And like that, you start adding up some points here, but none of this really matters actually. What matters is passing the level. The first act is Turquoise Hill, which is literally the first stage of Sonic Chaos, but there are some extra details like balloons floating in the sky, which makes everyone even more confused. Because man, I don't remember this in the original game, and remember, this is a straight-up remake. The guy is redoing it. Of course, the graphics will remind you of the Master System Sonic, but man, he's bringing in completely new concepts. Are you gonna say you forgot that Sonic cut his hair in this game? He looks more like Sonic 1 from the Master System here. It's cool there are balloons to fly away with, but if you fly too much, that's it. You still need to be careful in this game because there are double monitors that give you about 20 rings. It's something new. And one thing I have to tell you is that in this game, you can switch between the members of your trio, okay? Literally, you can switch whenever you want, and each one will have their own unique abilities, which really helps with the gameplay. In fact, man, at certain moments it's good to use Shadow because he has a forward boost. But every time you lose a ring, you lose all of them at once, and it's nice to have at least all the rings, at least about 50. To be able to reach the special stage, Silver for example, he flies off and man, his flight is practically unlimited because you can keep flying non-stop. And he can also see which walls he can go through. Going through them gives him access to various platforms and secret passages, which is going to be useful for this game. Besides that, he jumps in a circular way just like the other hedgehog in the game, so he won't have any disadvantage, or even less any exclusive mechanic. This is a classic 2D platformer game Sonic style, so accept it, man, this is just too good, and even so, getting hit in this game is brutal, man. Because it's important to collect 50 rings seriously, because the best part of the game comes when you finish the stage with them. And keep in mind, the stage is full of branches and lots of secret messages. For example, you can collect red rings here. There are 5 in this stage, and in other stages you only get 3. And since this game is in beta, it's not possible to know exactly what will be unlockable with these red rings. But for now, we have the game free to explore, and look, when you finish passing through the end of act sign, there's an exclamation mark here that is literally an invitation to enter the special stage, which here are the fully dimensional stages. And yes, right away we have Shinobi here. Actually, Alex Kidd in Shinobi World is when Alex Kidd tried to take on the mantle of Shinobi for kids. And literally he attacks with his katana in a game that came straight out looking like a kind of almost forgotten adventure of the boy. But I'll talk about that in a bit. Here there are stages with challenges. To be able to get a red ring reward like this one where you have to destroy 40 badniks, for example. The cool thing is that at least you can see that there's nothing more than just this challenge to do. In this stage it gets like a different color palette as if it were nighttime. And the thing is, there are more than 40 badniks, so like you won't be just looking for the enemy that's hidden in the stage by chance. If you left one behind and there are several paths, both above and below, there are holes anyway, it's a cool place to explore. But I have a complaint here, and I hope this gets fixed when the beta is updated. I managed to destroy more than 40 badniks, but like, what do I do after that? I didn't get any reward, and I couldn't find a way out of this stage either. She just stayed there with her friend stuck, and I kept looking for a way, searching for an exit, an end of act sign, and simply nothing showed up. Man, literally I was being trolled by this game and I didn't know how to finish the stage. And do you know what happens when time runs out? Well, that's what happened. And I died. It was sad. The second act here already has the sunset. Man, it's really cool. Look at the effect this stage has. How is this even playable? Was it playable? Man, I'm in absolute shock here. The sunset makes the ground completely dark, giving a cool silhouette, man, to Sonic and his crew. Not to mention that I feel like this is a reference to Donkey Kong, like there's a stage in this same style in Donkey Kong Country Returns, which is really awesome, man. And seeing this effect here is really cool too. The only things we can see are the badniks, your characters, and monitors, but the rest is completely black and white here. Actually, to be able to, create this effect, kind of like a sunset and all, I don't know if the creator is gonna try to do this with the characters, but man, it looks really good the way it is, honestly. I didn't expect him to change the look of the stages from one act to another, but this is really cool, to be honest. Not to mention that spring that stays on your foot, man, that's also back in this game, and there are new mechanics, okay? Check this out. For example, there's a kind of little boat here that you have to keep walking on while you escape from badniks through the swamp, While you're pushing it from left to right, trying not to get hit, man, this is really cool. I got hit a lot because of this, because you can't jump while you're on it. But even so, man, it's really cool to see new things quickly showing up here in an older game. And then comes the third act with the boss. You can only play as Sonic, and it seems also with Amy. And the first boss here is Motobug, who should have a spring on his back, but actually he's just here running you over. On the lower level, there's a flying turtle with the same badniks and a spring on their backs. Just jump and hit it on the head. And I kind of cheesed it, jumping all at once. For those who didn't get it, these are two bosses from different games brought together in a single fight. This first one is from Sonic Chaos, and the second one is from Sonic Triple Trouble. And when Sonic finishes this stage, man, check out the new surprise. Instead of an animal capsule, actually, you find here, man, a kind of, flower garden coming out in the Sonic CD style, and then comes that question. The game even features Rubble Road, which reminds me of Sonic Generations. And when I end up in the new Giga Gigalopolis, man, it's like the game isn't as complete as we might imagine. There are several rings here, a platform, and it just ends. There's no ending, it's just a pit where everyone dies, everyone died, it's over. But then I realized that there are much more complete saves in this game when you start to open them. I had started a new save. And here you could see what this more complete map would be after Gigalopolis, which was the second stage. There would also be Egg Garden, which is also from Sonic Chaos, and it looks like a garden suspended in the sky by Eggman. And man, I really want to see how this stage will work in the final version, alright? The graphics are here. There's Purple Winter, which is a completely snowy stage, and yes, this is from Sonic Triple Trouble, and Cosmic, the final stage, which is pretty much in the dark. And that's it. Honestly, I'm really excited to see what will happen in this game because, man, this is an extremely ambitious project. But remember, there was a detail I didn't mention about the special stage. So when you finish with 50 rings, you end up entering this stage here, which is literally a stage that references the classic Sonic games and actually his Sega crew on the Master System. The first is Alex Kidd in Shinobi Road, which was the last original Alex Kidd game. After all, the only one that came after was that remake of Miracle Road. And man, it's kinda hard to get used to. You're used to Sonic, and here the mechanics change completely, but the guy is recreating each of these games in here like a kind of special stage in the Sonic game. So here, Alex Kidd goes there, climbs up, and in the end, gets a time stone here. Yes, I'm talking about the time stone, which came from Sonic CD. The second one is literally a stage taken from Bonanza Brothers. Here you control one of the two brothers who are pretty much the biggest criminals and most wanted in video games on a mission to steal some jewels from highly protected places. Their shots aren't lethal. They only stun the guards. And man, this was one of the coolest games Sega ever released on the Mega Drive, and I know there's a Master System version too. I'm more familiar with the Mega Drive version mainly because it had split screen. You get two chances, one with the older brother, the red one, and another with the blue one who acts as an extra life. Man, this guy even zip lines, dude. This is so cool, and climbing all the stairs, man. His final heist, dude. It's literally a time stone for God's sake, and the third stage is literally, man, a stage in Fantasy Zone. This was like the first successful little mascot that Sega ever released. Here you have the little spaceship, Oops, which is the only spaceship that has legs. Seriously, it has feet and it can walk here on the ground. The original game was about destroying like some objects in a stage that was completely circular, and here it works the same way. There's even gold for you to collect, you know? To be honest, the guy made this work so well that I wouldn't be surprised if he used his engine for something else. You know, start making remakes of other games. After you destroy the objects, the time stone appears so you can, finish the stage, which makes everything a lot cooler. Then there's Enduro Racer. Man, this is a motorcycle game that, for God's sake, gave me some serious flashbacks playing it. You control a bike that's always moving forward, trying to finish the stage before time runs out. And man, this was a really cool game on the Master System. It's based on the arcade version, but the Master System gives it a completely different take from the original game. You could even do upgrades from one race to another. Here, you keep hitting a bunch of bumps so you can keep jumping, and you always have to land on the tracks so you don't lose speed, and definitely avoid landing on the rocks. You even have, a pretty generous amount of time to finish this stage, but man, this is really cool, and the music is also one of the best this game has to offer. The other dimensional stage is Columns, which is like Sega's version of Tetris. But the difference here is that there are colors, and these colors need to be matched in a line of 3 to, score points. The more color combinations you complete, the higher the percentage of the time stone. You can, unlock and clear the way here so you can, finish this stage. The guy literally took Sega's Tetris and remade it inside a Sonic game. This is impressive to me, man. The other dimensional stage here is Gain Ground, which is another Sega classic. Here, it's an isometric game where you control a small army that needs to fight against several other soldiers along the way. I think this part is still a bit rough because my impression is that it's a little too easy. Like, the soldiers only attack when you're really close. But it's just because if you're close to two of them, only one will come at you, which actually makes things a bit easier. And I believe that in this game, since it's hard to finish with 50 rings, this will make things a bit easier. In the original game, you would get other soldiers to use them during the rescue, so you could rescue more characters and gain more different abilities. For example, the first guy I get here has a shotgun and he shoots much faster, which is more useful than any other character you can use. Besides, there are enemies that are also easy for you to ignore. In this game, it's almost like, more of a strategy game to figure out which direction to go, even though you just need to go straight ahead. Most of the enemies aren't that aggressive. There are some that attack from a distance, but man, the ones that attack physically are easier to dodge. And when you get to the treasure room, there's a fire demon here throwing waves and bursts of fire in your direction. You just have to keep dodging them, which isn't that hard, and land as many shots as possible. This isn't supposed to be a hard game, but man, this is cool because you can get the time stone easily. And the last dimensional stage is Alex Kidd in Miracle Road. It's the best motorcycle in video games, and this, man, is really awesome because it's a crossover I didn't expect. You just run over everyone here with the motorcycle. And in the second act of the same special stage, Alex Kidd literally switches here to his new way of getting around. A helicopter, a pedal-powered helicopter, and man, can you get money here? Can you get the money? It's basically time to recharge and keep Alex Kidd going in these stages, but if you touch a red ball, that's it, man. No kidding, this is one of the best details this game could offer, a cool crossover with Alex Kidd in the classic style. I imagine that older guys, when they start playing this game, are going to go kind of crazy over this. Exactly because, man, it's a Sonic game that ends up bringing back the classics, the older Sega games that were really successful in Brazil. And everyone always dreamed of having these games. In fact, there you get another time stone. And with all of them together, Sonic can now have a new transformation which is more exclusive to this game. The Ultra Super Sonic, and to tell you, the Ultra Super Sonic is even crazier. You get 50 rings, and the first thing you can do with him besides transforming is turn white with lots of flashes of light. And he has, man, a lot of jumps, which basically makes him a flying character. Now, besides being invincible, man, it's pretty easy to defeat any enemy in this game, and any stage is easier to explore. And basically, he also gets the abilities of the other characters, right? At least from his team. He can go through intangible walls just like Silver, and since he's always bouncing, he basically has the same jump boost as Shadow. Man, literally it's 3-in-1, but it's Sonic Ultra Sonic. I never imagined he would put that in this game. To be honest, this game is really advanced. If the hardest part has already been done, which is adding the dimensional stages with totally different gameplay, like the special stage, and still program, for example, both Sonic's team and Amy Rose's team and make everything work, and also prepare the graphics for the next stages. Man, it's just a matter of programming the bosses and the other stages, and the game is pretty much done. Look, many years ago I saw the original remake project of the first game in Sonic 2, and it also promised to make Sonic 3 right, which would be Sonic Chaos. Man, nothing could have prepared me to see the project grow this much. It became its own timeline created by him, making references to the Sega universe, so I'm more than excited to play this game. I know he also has a mobile version programmed for you to try out, so you can download it from his blog. Man, this game is genius, and congratulations to João Maria, who's doing all of this by himself, man. The guy is awesome, one of the best Brazilians creating fan games that I've ever seen. I hope that at some point Sega pays attention to his project, because he created an engine capable of recreating many Sega games from the Master System and Game Gear era. And it's possible to port this to official games, just like what happened with Sonic Orange, because this is gold and it's Brazilian gold, man. This is the most interesting Sonic game I've found in recent times. Here on the internet, Sonic Fangames needed something fresh, and this is the case, Sonic Ultra Saturn. Yeah, actually, it's a Sonic game that tries to capture that 2D game essence. Imagining if Sega had continued with this style and had given full focus and support to Sonic back then during the 32-bit era. A time, let's say, more curious when Sega decided to drop a lot of Sonic games to focus on new titles. Nights into Dreams is the main highlight and example of this, because many members of the Sonic team started working on that game. The idea here is different. It's like a new Sonic game made for the Saturn that never existed. So much so that several visual effects that are common in 2D Saturn games are here in a Sonic game. I'm talking, for example, about this fog, which is very different from what you've seen in other games, the background animations too, and flash effects. For example, those who played the Shinobi games that came out for the Sega Saturn know a lot about this, right? But other games also use these effects, man. They were very common and sometimes even mixed with some 3D elements, which were much more common in games like this. Actually, the presentation of this game here is unbelievable, because when you start playing this fan game, you notice that it's using a lot of anime scenes that came from other Sonic projects, like for example Sonic Over the OVA. This animation, man, of Sonic is interesting because in some places they treat it as if it were the first Sonic movie, and in a way it is. It has 2 parts, which makes it over an hour long. But it's interesting because of the concept, since it's the first Japanese Sonic animation that was really well produced and highlighted Sonic's effects, like a team. The guy made a great montage here, like an opening in the style of Sonic CD, you know, but for the Saturn. And that's it, man. I'll tell you, I even want to re-watch this animation because it's really nostalgic. I watched it when I was really young. I downloaded it from a site called Power Sonic, and a lot of things from this animation even ended up showing up in later games. But it's really cool because of the quality. You know, if people say Sonic X is the best Sonic anime, I recommend watching Sonic OVA. It's way cooler. But anyway, let's go. Sonic Ultra Saturn. Man, it has a save system like Sonic 3, but you can play as Sonic, Tails, and also Knuckles. Sonic is the most standard one. You know, he has the spin dash power, high speed, peel out, and if you want to get the true ending, from what I noticed, you have to play only as him, because he's the one who will collect the Chaos Emeralds and become Super Sonic. The first stage is Madness Mountain, which is different from anything we've seen in other Sonic games. Even though it's set on a mountain, it has that greener side which is very common in forests, and also grand hill zones. You've already seen that in other Sonic games, man. It's a totally 2D game, but the physics really work. You won't see Sonic lacking control like in Sonic 4, you know? It's a really decent game. Reflecting on the Mega Drive's impact back then, what strikes me most about this stage is how it recalls several stages from other games. In fact, the guy who made this project is really a Sonic fan because when you stop to think about it, you have to pay attention to a lot of details. For example, the green part reminds me of Green Hill, the mountainous part is pretty much like the underground from Sonic 2 on the Master System, and here you have several badniks that reference various other Sonic games at the same time. Man, this is really awesome. The essence of Sonic is really well represented here, so much so that it's a lot of fun to play because you have those speed moments, and this first stage is very complete with underwater elements. In the same way, you also end up getting rid of problems like, for example, lava sections that suddenly appear here in the game. Some attack, others don't, but it's strange. But yes, this is a great structure, so much so that it ends up reminding you of a lot of things that have already been used in official projects, and this stage is like a lost Sonic stage. The second act is more interesting because Sonic is going down this big mountain and he ends up running into the first facilities that Dr. Eggman would be setting up around here. The cool thing is that it also has interactions with all the elemental shields from the Sonic games. Some are new, others are already familiar, but it's cool because the stage keeps transforming practically every moment, every second you go through it. Man, Sonic is running. Suddenly he finds several train tracks. He gets caught in traps that try to take him out, crushing him or even pinning him against spikes. And suddenly he's underwater, almost drowning. Man, the difficulty in this game is unbelievable. Sonic is running, getting to this huge train track structure and starts chasing Eggman. No, and the game completely transforms. Because the boss fight is literally Eggman chasing you, trying to aim at you, and you get help here, man, from Boomer. Yes, that old little turtle who was a scrapped idea for Sonic's partner. Tails was supposed to be this badnik here who would have become Sonic's robot friend, but ended up becoming this little partner here. Man, this is really cool. When I saw this for the first time playing on that live stream back then, man, I'll tell you, I thought this was genius and I started wanting to play this game all the way to the end. To understand what was so impressive about this game, the problem with this game in this boss fight is that you have to keep jumping, dodging some rocks. And on top of that, you have to make Eggman get a taste of his own medicine. Like, the only way for Eggman to get hit in this fight is when he shoots aiming at Sonic here. But he needs to hit one of these rocks in the middle of the shot. That way the shot will bounce back to Eggman's head and deal damage to him. Man, it took me almost 10 minutes to figure this out, and this was enough. Dynamite Plant. Yeah, this stage reminds me of everything I hate about the Oil Ocean stage, but at the same time it mixes in the anti-gravity element. It has a metropolis structure and even makes references to Fang's gang of bandits. Suddenly you are running inside some structures that keep launching you up. There are conveyor belts, saws, everything bad this game could offer. I don't know if this is some kind of endurance test, but man, it was really, really annoying. The most intense part of all this is that you leave that structure and try to go to a more grounded area, you know, but you just get thrown up again. At least the platforms don't make Sonic spin non-stop like we've seen in other games out there. The second act seems to have brought back things from Chemical Plant, but man, this stage is intense. Several badniks here look like they even came out of a pinball game. The guy who worked on this game isn't exactly the best sprite artist, but he ends up bringing back a lot of other sprites that show up briefly, man, in Sonic games from other generations. Man, there are elements here that came from Sonic's pinball game. Could this be the redemption for Sonic's pinball games? I find this unbelievable. It's such a huge furnace, a steel factory that Eggman managed to set up here, but the only defense he puts in the form of badniks is a bunch of birds that came from Sonic Satan Hell's Parrots. The fight against Eggman is interesting. He keeps flying here on a platform with conveyor belts and a bunch of saws, throwing bombs while he's up there, flying high, trying to make Sonic jump in the wrong place. Man, that's basically what you have to do. The problem is, if you fall, you die. Like, there's no room for mistakes in this fight. You have to wait for Eggman to come to you. If you have a little patience, you can do like I did. Jump here on the right corner, wait for him to come, then you jump on him. The problem is the time, right? We know that if you spend 10 minutes on a stage in a Sonic game, you die. But this is a very effective way to defeat Eggman, and that way clear the path to the next stage. Crystal Frost. This stage here, you might even think you've seen it somewhere before. But I think the guy was really inspired by Sonic Extreme, which is that game that never existed and probably never should have existed because it was really bad. It was the 3D Sonic game project which was supposed to rival Mario 64 and also Crash Bandicoot. In the Great War, if we can call it that, the mascot war, well, this game here managed to bring the songs from that project, which are on the internet, so that's good. But I can see a more annoying escape section here. Because Sonic keeps walking on various platforms, pressing buttons, and escaping from ice spikes that always end up causing a lot of trouble and serious headaches. The fact that Sonic is always being pushed as if he's going down a slope is unbearable. In this game, this moment is terrible because Sonic suddenly goes at high speed out of nowhere and we end up kind of going in circles in this stage. But there's a detail I wanted to talk about in this video and I need to explain to you, which is about the special stages and special battles in this game. When we least expect it, the fight against Dr. Eggman shows up pretty much out of nowhere. He is literally the guy who is literally the one messing with the 3D perspective. For example, he's flying in the background of the screen while throwing several bombs toward the hedgehog. Man, this fight here is completely crazy because Sonic is running straight toward Eggman. But all the time these big spikes come trying to attack, and that's while he's also dodging several bombs at the same time. Then you ask me, how do you beat a boss like this? Well, pretty much by sheer willpower. Survive because you will win. The second act is pretty much a repetition of the formula from the first. The difference is that now you have a lot more moments where you're going to slide on the ice, and this part is completely unbearable. Man, I almost gave up on the game here because I really couldn't take these little moments the game puts in front of you anymore, not to mention that this stage is a huge maze. The objective here, man, is very clear, Sonic. You really have to rack your brain breaking through spikes and of course trying to climb an ice mountain that does everything it can to make you die. But the boss in this game is worth it, man. Dr. Eggman turned into a snowman and he even looks just like one right down to the nose. Man, there are a bunch of ice spikes on the ceiling and the goal is to try to jump onto those spikes so you can hit Eggman while he's flying around. Man, this is one of the lamest boss fights the game could have put in. Coming from such a hard stage, it could have been way tougher, you know, for a boss? Because even playing as Sonic, who in theory can't fly to hit with the tail swipe like Tails can, the fight here gets ridiculously easy. The snowman messes with you using earthquakes and ice waves, but you can beat him. It's a breeze. Seriously, it's ridiculously easy. Rainy Savannah. This is the stage that reeks the most of Sega Saturn games. The amount of texture with fog, thunder, and rain is something that Sega's console back then was capable of doing and really prided itself on. It's really sad to think that Sega worked so hard on a next-generation console project, which ended up kind of destroying the company's own reputation, in several places around the world, actually. She really believed that Sega Saturn would be able to lead the next generation of video games because her vision for that generation of video games was 2D games. Let's be honest, nowadays, all the 2D games from the PlayStation 1, Sega Saturn, and even Nintendo 64 era have aged infinitely better than any 3D game that was released back then. That's because 3D graphics at that time were very limited and companies were still trying to figure out how to work with 3D games. So much so that many 2D games that became 3D at that time turned into terrible games. Maybe the biggest example of this is Castlevania, which a lot of people love to say got worse, and it has the 2D game which, let's be honest, Symphony, which revolutionized Castlevania, managed to make the game infinitely better. But here it's endless rain, lots of fireflies and fog. But all of this just to reach a big platform full of mud and face the great rival that Sonic has always faced. After climbing several vines and reaching higher and higher places, under a full moon, Sonic goes down the big slope and Sonic meets his rival, Metal Sonic. The fight against him is interesting. He's flying, falling from a waterfall, and Metal Sonic keeps shooting at him. What Sonic has to do is dodge those shots. While controlling the direction of his fall, he keeps dodging Metal Sonic, who speeds up his attacks more and more. Sonic is completely vulnerable. This is the perfect chance, but Metal Sonic attacks, and instead of keeping up the attack, he just runs away. That's because the ground comes up and he can't keep attacking forever. Well, the second act is pretty much the same stage, but now it's dawn. I like that detail. The first act was in the rain, man, with a full moon, and in the second you have this morning fog, and it's cool, man. All the details around this great savannah look like a perspective, but all of this is to reveal a huge structure that Eggman was building in this setting. There's a hydroelectric generator here, and of course Metal Sonic is the one defending it. He flies around the stage while Sonic is underwater, throwing bombs and also charging shots. And the only way Sonic can confront Metal Sonic is when he attacks, leaves the screen, and comes back, man. Metal Sonic's attacks are really uncoordinated. He comes out in a split second really fast, and Sonic has to jump while he's not charging a shot. The problem is, depending on the position, he can also get hit. I'm sorry, man, but this boss here just doesn't work. He's way too confusing, and his attacks keep hitting. This ball perspective that just keeps growing towards you is one of the most annoying things the game could possibly offer. If I praised the game before, it's only because the Metal Sonic fight was one of the worst I've seen here. It would have been better to have a race between the two instead of actually creating a fight where Metal Sonic is defending a hydroelectric plant. Man, this is lame, but look, in the end, when Sonic defeats Metal Sonic here, the plant falls and then the big flying battery appears flying into the sky. Check it out, man. The game, playing with yet another perspective, yeah, it literally turned into a spaceship shooter game. The tornado can start shooting, and you also control it with Sonic on top of the plane. Like, nothing affects him, man. Metal Sonic doesn't show up. But now he's been replaced by Dr. Eggman Robotic, the Egg Robo, which shows up here in droves coming at you. You just have to keep shooting here while trying to get closer and closer to Eggman's flying ship. When you get there, he keeps releasing a bunch of Egg Robos. And then you have to hit each of the turbines and dodge the shots that Eggman's air fleet keeps firing from the sky. The tricky part is, after defeating some Egg Robos here, a few tiny birds appear that are so small I'm not sure they can even fly. Gigante Wing Zone, this is the second act, and yes, it's Flying Battery, Sonic's Wing Fortress, but now in a new version. Now you'll face egg and robots not meant for this stage, but that's fine since it's the creator's concept for the fan game. The hard part of this stage is there are many propellers and platforms that don't help you find your way. If you jump in the wrong place, you can fall way out of the stage and even worse, get lost inside it. It has moments both outside and inside the aircraft, but he tried to add speed sections with lots of loops. It's a mix of all the air fleet stages that classic Sonic has been through, but it's really tricky, isn't it? After throwing Sonic almost out of the aircraft, but here an alert appears. Eggman flies away with his rocket, and it looks like the big aircraft is going to explode in 10 seconds, and that's when the madness begins, right? Sonic must escape or he'll die. The worst part is the screen shakes for a long time while he's stuck there, then it explodes. And then, the final stage is with Sonic falling from the aircraft, heading toward the sea, trying to escape from a bunch of debris, and he still has to fight Egg Robo as well. And grabbing some monitors that are spinning toward him, man, I really like this part. The big difference in this game is the perspective. It keeps trying to play with sprites, with Sonic heading toward the sea, making Sonic move in a three-dimensional way. I tried to make this game unique compared to other fan games, and honestly, it's really cool. And while Sonic is about to reach the sea, well, he actually falls into the water, and this could be the end for Sonic, but that's not what's going to happen. Red Wetland Zone. This is the tense stage, okay? Because Sonic didn't just fall here on a pier that looks like it came from a beach, but look at the size of those planets, man. This isn't normal, and who shows up here? It's Metal Sonic from Knuckles Chaotix. Now the guy is being piloted by Eggman, and it's creepy, man. There's even the finger animation, which never really showed up properly in that game. Look at the fluidity. And this would be the grand finale because, man, the stage moves by itself. There's the giant laser from Metal Sonic, and yes, it's Metal Sonic. There, except he's hidden and Dr. Eggman has to throw everything at Sonic to force him off the stage. Man. This fight here is insane because it's really cruel. There are a lot of spikes and it's hard to hit him while you try. Like escaping from falling into holes or getting hit by any of those shots or the laser barrier that's in the background. If by any chance you manage to beat Metal Sonic, you move on to another fight like hold on for a minute and a half. That time will be enough to go to the next phase of the fight. A race with Metal Sonic who will fight against you while Sonic is running toward an Eggman facility that's in the middle of the sea. Man, the fight against Metal Sonic is lame. Sonic is literally in 3D. And Metal Sonic is not only powering up his body to make Sonic have to escape from him, but also firing shots or jumping at you. Man, the fight is really dumb like this, but you can hit Metal Sonic if you have a little bit of invincibility. Sometimes it's better to just take some hits so you can hit back harder later, you know? So, you only win this fight, man, through sheer persistence, really, because it's not hard. It's just that you have to hit them at the right moments. And in the end, by surviving this annoyance. Metal Sonic is left behind, and so Sonic is going to arrive here at the Great Fortress. The end of Dr. Dragon Man, Wetland Eggman.
Wetland Zone.
Man, this is Eggman's big park, but it's packed with tech. It's really crazy because this looks like a repeat of several stages, including those zones where Sonic faced all the bosses at once. It's full of spikes, full of conveyor belts, Eggman's face everywhere, which looks like it came out of Knuckles' game. Elevators, lots of panels, dash. It's funny how fast this level is, but it's kind of weird. At the same time, there's a lot of technology like teleporters and conveyor belts. Well, they can be annoying, but it's a huge stage. All of this is really well put together, but I hate this section where Sonic has to keep jumping on small platforms to escape some saws. Man, I can never get these jumps right. For God's sake, man, why did you do this? But this is the last challenge before reaching the end of the game. Dr. Eggman got here with his Mega Robot. His arms are good for demolition, and he keeps trying to smash using his little arms here, and he also releases some capsules that might have a giant ring. But Sonic can hit him. This is what they say is the lost boss from Sonic CD. Well, this concept exists, but if the guy reused it to put it here, congratulations. But it's funny that every time Eggman slams down, he leaves a capsule here with a giant ring inside. Whenever this capsule falls, Eggman always tries his hardest to grab it as quickly as possible. Seriously, he tries to do that, and the worst part is if you try to hit it, it goes bad. That's his way of defending himself. Man. You can only hit this robot by hitting that capsule with the ring, which doesn't make sense because it shouldn't deal damage to this robot. They're not even connected, but just ignore the game. Explain that that's Eggman's energy source. What I ended up doing in the end was basically standing still, waiting for Eggman to attack so I could see the capsule appear and then defeat him that way. Seriously, because every time you get hit, you can recover the rings. The problem is that in the end, Eggman escapes with his giant metal Sonic robot. And then comes a big surprise, which isn't very nice. The ending was bad, yeah, it's not the first time we've seen this giant metal Sonic show up for the finale. Awful, but this game requires the Chaos Emeralds for the ending. To get the good ending, you must beat a bonus game. And man, it's kind of tense because look at this, he's recreating it. A 3D game concept for the Saturn for Sonic that never moved forward. There are only concept images. I'm not sure how developed it was, but it's similar to Sonic, and there's a Kirby billiards game in this style. Here the idea for Sonic is to do a spin dash and push some balls into some holes before time runs out. And my friend, this is boring to a whole new level because you have no control. You just point Sonic where he's going and that's it, man. Congratulations to the creator of this fan game because he really went and picked a Sonic game concept that nobody cared about, that never went anywhere. Not even Sega believed in this, you know, it never got any recognition from Sega itself, and he only did this to be able to get each of the Chaos Emeralds. Man, this is the worst special stage I've ever seen in a Sonic game, but it's okay, it's what Sega puts in. The true ending is basically Sonic going to face Dr. Eggman using the power of the 7 Chaos Emeralds and turning into the great Super Sonic who's more tanned than ever. And the final battle begins, which is also in 3D perspective, man. This metal Sonic robot that Dr. Eggman rebuilt is really powerful, shooting electric rays, energy balls, hitting with its little arms, and much more. You can keep dodging all these attacks the whole time, but Sonic keeps getting closer and closer to Dr. Eggman, and that's how he manages to deal some damage and leave him really hurt. So Eggman falls and Super Sonic saves the day. On a cloudy, stormy day like this, the game has the true ending and it's the real Sonic Ultra Saturn. Man, this is really cool here. I always wondered why the Sega Saturn didn't have a great Sonic adventure game made by Sega themselves. Sonic 3D Blast doesn't count here. It's basically the vision Sega had at the time since they created it. An incredible video game capable of playing 2D games that nowadays look much better than the 3D games from back then, but it never really took off, you know? I wouldn't say that this game would have saved Sega's console at that moment, but for the big Sonic fanbase that existed at that time, the lack of a Sonic game was pretty much shooting themselves in the foot. This here is concept. The guy took at least about 7 years to make this game complete. The result is right here. A game that uses a lot of the concepts that Sega abandoned and also many other new ideas. Extremely beautiful and well-made animations and a repeat of concepts already used in Sonic games done very well here. Personally, I liked it. I wish more Sonic fan games would come out, but what can you do? We won't always have games like Sonic Ultra Saturn to play here, but if you want to check out other games that are already good and have been around for longer, just go to the Sonic Fan Games playlist. I'll be there waiting for you with more videos.